So it looks like we are on. I might actually need to bring that up just a little bit. So we're just working with technology real quick to see where things are and what we need to adjust. Hang on with us. So we can see everybody's feet, because you know how important that is. Okay. Hey, Anna, can you see us online? Yes. We are online. Hey, we're live. Facebook Live. All right. Hold on right there for a little bit, and we're going to get started. How's everybody doing today?
Good.
So can I interrupt you? We're right about 3:30ish, and I want to start on time and get through everything so we can get to the panel. Thank you guys all for coming out, especially those that came out and co-worked all afternoon. I don't know about you guys, but I had a pretty good time. Get to know quite a few of you, some that I knew and just hadn't got to catch up with in a while, so that was awesome. Panel will be up front, so if you guys that are sitting in this area, you may want to move into the middle just to see better, but it's completely up to you. For those of you guys that don't know, I'm Emily Leach. I am the founder of the Freelance Conference, and that is what's bringing this. Thank you very much. Bringing this conversation to you guys. I was sitting at in a cafe a couple weeks ago with my partner Anna, and we were like, what do we want to do with the summer series? So the Freelance Conference each year has kind of done sort of what I call the summer series, where we just get together and kind of hang out, do some co-working, let you guys experience some free co-working spaces across Austin, and then usually have a happy hour. Well, this year I wanted it to have a little bit more meaning, and so we decided to bring on an educational component. And Anna was like, "What about a conversation about the future of work?" I was like, "Oh God, yes!" For a bunch of reasons. One is, as freelancers, I think we tend to not spend a whole lot of time looking at the broad spectrum of what's really going on around us. And even if we do, we're doing it in a vacuum. Maybe you're spending some time on Facebook, but I don't know that that's really getting us out of our vacuum as much as getting out of the room, getting out of the house, coming into a space and really hearing what's going on around us and being a part of that voice and a part of that conversation. So thank you guys very much for coming out. This is freaking awesome. We will be doing a series of these over the summer. There's 3 of them here in Austin. Today we're really going to just dive into what the future of work looks like from a different perspectives. So we have someone here from the corporate space. We have someone here that's from the startup space. We have someone that's here from like the recruiting space. Did Don make it? Okay, yeah. And yes, there is. And we have someone here from the educational space, because I think we need a more rounded understanding of this. And next month we're going to talk about the tools that are our platform for the future of work. What's happening? How are those tools changing? What tools do we need to pay attention to? Things like that. And then in August is to be determined. And we did that on purpose because we don't know what we're going to get out of today. And once we figure out what we see today and get some feedback from you guys, we're going to pull back together and make a decision of what we'll be talking about in August. So next month we will be at Atmosphere Co-working, which is just east of town. So if you haven't experienced that yet, come and do some co-working with us again. Join that conversation. And then in August we're going to be in T-Works. So T-Works is up in Cedar Park. I tend to call it Cedar Crest because I spent 15 years in Albuquerque, and it's not at Cedar Park. And right outside of Albuquerque is Cedar Crest, so you can see how I might get that mixed up. There's a few things like that, but regardless, so we'll be up there. So if you're north of town or just want to take a day trip, it's a great little day trip up to Cedar Park. Go spend the afternoon with us, and we'll kind of do the same scenario. We'll follow this up with a happy hour. Does anybody have any questions before we dive in? Crickets. In case you guys didn't hear, that was crickets. No questions. So I'm going to dive into something I'm pretty freaking excited about. Not just this conversation, but I've spent a good amount of time over the last 18 months talking with a couple of groups out of the UK. And one of the big things that they do in the UK is they celebrate their freelancers. They have a really strong awards program that they do every single year. So again, sitting at that same table with Anna, I was like, I want to do freelancer awards. And she goes, okay, that's a pretty good idea. What are you thinking? And so I pulled a couple of other people together and got their feedback, and this is what we came up with. 4 different awards this year anyway. So nominations started at 3 o'clock today. It opened up, so you can go to nationalfreelanceраwards.com, and you can nominate a freelancer for most innovative, most inspirational, most community-oriented, and then of course we're going to do the Freelancer's Choice Award. I think it's pretty awesome. And when I've started talking to sponsors and stuff, they actually get pretty excited about it as well. In fact, right now, the valued package, so it'll be equal package for all 4 winners. Right now it's valued at a little over $1,500. So we got Microsoft as a part of this. The Freelancers Union has given some stuff. DeskPass has given a 1-year DeskPass award. If you're not familiar with DeskPass, you will be next month if you come, because they're actually launching in Austin next month. And then MileIQ is giving a year away as well. So I'm super excited about what people are coming to the table and saying, yeah, I want to be a part of this. How can I help? How can I help freelancers be more effective and more efficient with their tools? So nominations will go for a month, from June 1st to July 1st. And then nominations will close down. It'll go into open voting. And so open voting will go from July 14th to August 21st. And the public vote will be worth 50% of what the overall vote is. And so we have a designated group of people that will be doing the judging panel at the end after the 21st. And then September 8th, we'll be having a awards ceremony. Have you guys been out to the Live Oak Brewery? Wow, I must be the only one that had never heard of it. It is gorgeous. Anyway, we got that space on the Friday night of the Freelance Conference. So if you get a ticket to the Freelance Conference, of course you can go, but it will be open to the public as well. And so September 8th, we're going to announce those 4 winners. And I can't freaking wait. Questions? Okay. That was it. That was the awesome announcement. Help me out here. Okay, so now let's go ahead and jump into what we all came here for outside of the announcement and outside of hanging out and playing together all day. That came out wrong. But you should have been here. If you weren't, you don't know what happened today. Because like, what happens here stays here, right? Come on, that was funny. Don's the only one laughing. All right, so the panel is on, like I said, the future of work. It is an interactive panel. If you have questions, we just ask that you be respectful about it. Differing opinions, is that the right word? Is also super okay. Just don't be a total D-bag about it. You know, just say, we get that everybody can, we agree to disagree. And then also, I want you guys to know that we're actually taking notes. We have somebody in the audience taking notes, so if you don't want to take notes, you don't have to. We will give those to you guys via email, and we're also recording this. We're on Facebook Live right now, so if you guys want us to give a big yahoo, they can only hear you, so you don't have to get all animated about it. But they will probably be able to hear you. I don't know, can you guys hear me? Yes? I know you guys can hear me.
Non-animated yahoo.
There was a big nod, everybody here can hear me. All right, so I'm going to invite Elijah May to come up. Elijah? Most of you guys probably know Elijah, right? He's kind of an icon in the Austin space. Okay, nobody knows Elijah. So this is Elijah May. He's our experience officer with the Freelance Conference. So what that means is that when we bring people in, sponsors, when we design and develop the entire process now of what's going on with the Freelance Conference, this dude says, you know what, we could make that more of an experience. Let's do this. Let's do that. So we're super, super, super happy and excited to have you here. Thank you so much.
Appreciate that. And thank you for agreeing to let me moderate today. So welcome to the Future of Work. We have some fascinating folks. Am I good on it? And am I? All right. So if, Will, if you want to come up and join me, Paul and Brian. So Will, you're here. Or actually, Rachel, you're in the middle. Just so you're, well, you can look at your picture, jump in front of it, and you're good to go.
You guys figure that out?
Yeah, it's complicated.
Well placed.
We didn't want people to think you were Brian, and it would be,
Yeah, it would be confusing.
that'd be awkward for everybody. Okay, so we've got a couple of simple questions. I'm going to have these folks introduce themselves, and then I am going to try to prompt you guys to give us at least 3 of you to speak up and ask and talk about why this topic is of interest to you. Okay, so you've got a couple of minutes to think about it. First, I'm going to have these fine folks introduce themselves, starting with Will Staney.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm founder and principal consultant at Proactive Talent Strategies, and I founded it in late 2015 after about a decade in the tech world, both in startups like Glassdoor and Twilio, and prior to that, larger enterprise software companies like SAP and VMware. We specialize, we help companies from GoDaddy, big enterprise companies like GoDaddy and GE, to small startups here in the Austin area to evolve the way that they hire. We are pretty much a co-op of freelance consultants who, prior to this, were recruiting leaders, heads of employer branding, practitioners who decided that they wanted to get out of the corporate world and go and help the broader industry and business community through project-based work. And so we are sort of this co-op of people who are business owners ourselves, but also kind of under one flag where we can collaborate and work together and jump on projects together. So it's been a really awesome experience, and we've been lucky to work with a lot of different types of companies.
So you'll be able to contribute both as a recruiter and also as a business owner, which is with one of these sort of more modern business structures, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Rachel?
Yeah. Hey everybody, I'm Rachel Braunstein. I started off my career actually on the marketing agency side. I finished my MBA here at UT Hookham in May 2016. So definitely lived here in Austin for 2 years and love the community here in Austin. I have the great fortune of now working in the corporate world at Microsoft, which is a whole different beast for me. I work in the One Commercial Partner organization, so very channel focused, partner led digital marketing efforts around demand gen. I lead our podcast channel, hosting all sorts of people. So I'll be here to talk about what it's like to work with freelancers, to hire them, to work with agencies, and what I'm seeing with my friends and counterparts in corporate America at tech companies as well. Thank you.
Welcome. Thank you. Paul O'Brien.
Elijah May.
Paul O'Brien's usually moderating, so is it weird just being on a panel?
No, I like this. There's less pressure.
Seems like the pressure's over here.
I don't have, yeah, you got to remember the good questions and make sure we stay on point. Hi, everybody. I love this. This is the kind of stuff that I get involved with. I started my career at Yahoo, so I'm an old online media kind of person. Went to Hewlett Packard and spent a lot of money on search. So I've got a bit of a search background, and essentially work in venture capital now for startups. I'm trying to address how and why money moves into the new economy, whether that's startups or freelancers or new businesses. There's a question of what media, this kind of stuff, and what technology is doing to disrupt and enable what we do. And so, by the way, if you're on the stream, that's what I was doing when I got up here. If you're on the stream, share it. That's how this works. We've got a good crowd here. You've got thousands more that can pay attention to this. Just 2 nights ago, we were screwing around in Media Tech Ventures, which is the company that I'm behind. We were screwing around with 360 VR live streaming at an event, which is kind of neat. Folks can put on the goggles and look around and see who's at an event. So next time, Emily, we got to do this in 360.
I actually just talked to Microsoft about that yesterday.
Perfect. There you go. So that's me. I'm excited to be here.
Wow.
That's awesome. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Don Tracy. I work for Austin Community College here in Austin. I work specifically in the continuing education area of the college, and in that part of the college, we do a lot of workforce education programs. We do a lot of industry certification programs. We'll probably talk about that in a little bit because some of you all. I also have a background in economic development. In my public life, I served on the City Council in Cedar Park for 5 years, and I continue to serve on several economic development boards around the region, including our Capital Area Council of Governments Economic Development Board, the Economic Development Board in the City of Kyle, and now an Economic Development Board, Workforce Board in San Marcos, and then also in Round Rock. So I'm hoping that in this conversation I can bring a little bit of perspective around what's really going on out there, and what we're hearing at Austin Community College is in demand out there, and that might inform some of your decisions as you start thinking about engagements with your clients and prospective clients and other things. So hopefully we can add a little bit there.
And I'm just going to dovetail off that for just a second. Who's familiar? Who knows what economic development is just offhand? You got one person, a couple people in the room? All right.
Do any of us really?
So, right, as cities decide where they want to invest their money, one of the major factors historically has been how many people are you going to employ? If we bring you to the region, how many people will you employ? But this change in the way that businesses hire and retain people has a dramatic effect on how a city or region can invest in those companies. We've been having this conversation for probably 8 years now. And so some of these things are really finally just kind of starting to come to a head. And so that's why we're particularly delighted to have Don here with that public policy perspective on the future of work. That said, the question to all of you to kind of kick us off here is, when you first heard the future of work, what was the first thing that jumped in your head? Like, what was it about this topic that was particularly interesting to you? Anybody want to jump in?
I think I can. I'll suggest to you guys as well, something that I'm particularly interested in is transformation in work and what's causing that. I'm a doctoral student right now, about to start working on my dissertation, and that's going to be my topic actually. So the first thing that occurred to me is the impact of innovation, kind of mentioned, right, with respect to technology and other things. So technological advancement, business process improvement, creative destruction in the marketplace. Those things are driving a change in the skills that are required for us to do the work that we do, and it happens every day. And so I'm convinced at this point that in higher education, the real game in town is what happens in between the certificates and degrees that you earn, right? It's the things that you do to better prepare yourself to add value to the folks that you serve. So that was the first thing that came to mind for me.
Excellent. I'm going to remind all of us to speak up, in particular for our folks, our friends on Facebook. Just let us know. Give me a wave and we'll turn it up, okay?
Yeah. For me, I when I think about the future work, I think about how the expectations of workers is changing, and typically things that change work or employers stems from that. You think about the labor movement of the past, things like that. The expectations that the workforce has changes the way work is, and so technology is definitely a part of it. Education is definitely a part of it. It's also those expectations that come in. People that are entering the workforce now, they want flexibility. They want to be able to have a full integration of work and life. I think we aren't, we're not really the same workforce that our parents went to, where you stay at the same employer 20 years. They like to job hop. I look at my own career. I stayed maybe 1 to 2 years at each employer until finally, after 7 years, realized, okay, I just like to build things. I just want to go and build and build machines and then train people to maintain them and move on. And I think not everyone is that way, but a lot of people are. And so the workplace and the future of how we do work has to be a lot more flexible than I think it has in the past.
I mean, more and more colleges have entrepreneurship programs. So we talk not just about entrepreneurship, but entrepreneurship, the idea of how do you have entrepreneurial thinking in your job. And so as someone who's working for a corporation, does that play into this conversation?
Entrepreneurship?
Or I'll let you answer the question
Okay,
first.
because I was
and then
ready
you
to
can segue.
answer the other question.
Okay, do that.
Okay, because I can hit that too.
Okay.
The first thing that comes to my mind is artificial intelligence, for sure. Bot
Isn't it
technology.
for everybody?
Yeah. Machine learning, bot technology, many jobs really just not existing anymore. Maybe it's 5 years, maybe it's 10 years, and maybe it's right now. Actually, many jobs are leaving. If you think about what Facebook Messenger is doing, what WeChat is doing, WhatsApp, many of the customer service kind of jobs, you don't need that. It's now being handled with bots. That's just the reality of the situation. But with that actually comes an opportunity, I think, for humans. And one of my recent podcasts, I interviewed James Whitaker, who is fantastic. Hi, James, if you happen to be watching this. He's a tech evangelist, Google guy, Microsoft. He was the first data scientist at the FBI, and what he talks about is, this next industrial revolution is really about human creativity. And so for all of us, 5-10 years down the line, those that will withstand are those that can be creative and be the brains behind the logic that is created in the data. And so that's kind of where my head goes with it. And one other thing that we talk a lot about at Microsoft, there's a lot of initiatives going around with our CVPs and beyond, is around the talent gap and how we, as a large company, can create very flexible online courses that are relatively cheap, that can help employees and employers use all the courses that we have in languages across the world so that you can help train your employees and help fill some of the technical gaps that many of our partners are facing every single day. So you want to talk about entrepreneurship?
I do, but
Right, now
we'll
we'll
let them
wait.
go first and then we'll come back.
Yeah,
All right.
okay.
Maybe I'll tie it together because
Yeah,
I love that you started with education and you ended with learning. The future of work, struck me with regard to the idea that for the last 15, 20 years, the fact that all of these points is even possible is because of the fact that we all work with technology, whether or not we work in technology. It is no longer the question, right? The future is not flying cars and computers and even AI, frankly, right? It's that technology is in fact involved in everything we're doing. And that enables us to learn on demand, wherever we want to, how we want to. It enables us to work where we want to, from where we want to, for whom we want to, on our terms at midnight or from 9 to 5. It enables a corporate environment to employ people fractionally and overseas and part-time and in the office. That the future of work to me is this question of whether or not and how we keep up with that fact. That technology is both an enabler now and a dependency. That if we don't keep up with it, if you don't use it, someone else is. And so we've got to be conscious of that. We've got to figure out how we leverage what something like AI might do, or what the fact that my neighbor can learn perhaps much more quickly or much more efficiently than I might sitting in a university environment. How do we keep up with the opportunities that are enabled by technology?
So you mentioned learning. I suspect you're going to mention learning. Well, what came to mind when you first heard the future of work?
Well, the innovation stuff that I mentioned a little bit ago. I do think that from our perspective, I can tell you from the college perspective, we're looking at how technology impacts what we do and how it changes the way we come alongside our students and deliver real-time training to our students. We're able to do some of that through our continuing education area because it's a lot more flexible, right, than your traditional college structure. So that's a really concerning piece to me is as technologies are changing, as new processes are being integrated into businesses, as jobs go away, creative destruction in the economy is occurring every single day and jobs go away. So how do we as an educational institution come alongside individuals and businesses and help support them in the training needs that they have as a result of this sort of meta trend that's occurring? So that's the first thing that comes to mind is the impact of innovation is tremendous.
So you used to have to educate people so you could get them into the workforce. Now you have to educate people so they can stay in the workforce.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
I was just in a discussion 3 hours ago in San Marcos and an hour ago in Round Rock on this very topic, right? Actually, I want to suggest this as well. My experience today is work today. I was in Georgetown this morning for a meeting, San Marcos earlier this afternoon for a meeting, Round Rock for a meeting, and now back here. And all of it's related to the job that I'm doing, right? Work is happening in a lot of different places all at the same time, right? It's not a place that you go to from 9 to 5 every day.
Yep, so they haven't discovered Skype, is that what you're saying?
Sometimes you just got to be there.
Okay. Sometimes you got to be there. It's a valid point.
Sometimes you have to be.
Okay. So you now know where we're coming from. My question to you, the audience, is where are you guys coming from? What is it that intrigued you about this particular topic? If we get 3 people, I'd love to hear it. Dawn.
I'm Dawn. Thank you for remembering my name.
Hey, Dawn.
That's awesome. So, well, obviously I want to keep working. I love working. I don't care if I retire. I always want to be doing something I want to do, you know? And I read Kevin Kelly's book, The Inevitable, and it really turned me on to like future trends, and I thought it was cool. And then I also recently wrote a white paper for a company called Science Delights that does STEM education for pre-K. And so the position of that was all based on scientific method is the only thing that, and not the only thing that needs to be taught, but it has to be like this thing that's ingrained from like when you're like a little kid to like forever, because being able to master the process of validating a path is the most important thing for future generations, no matter what career you go into. Like even if you're like an artist or like someone who seems like completely unrelated to science, like you know me, I mostly like write copy and do content strategy and persuasive things and people things, not tech things, but understanding how to make quick decisions and evaluate the landscape and validate a path through the scientific process, I think has to be there, no matter who you are, what you do.
So you're saying, hopefully that does not become obsolete, right? That is something we can rely on regardless of the advances of technology, society, culture.
I would assume so, based on the fact that you go, what's the problem? What do I think is the solution? And then I test it and just like learning how to. I don't really feel like it's like getting out a beaker. It's like really learning how to make quick, educated decisions, right? Like it's not, like I said, it's not totally just in science. And also, I used to be a high school teacher, and the most frustrating thing when you work in the public school system, or used to, because I don't know what's really happening now. It was like kids work at such different paces, and now like you know I just started like reinvestigating learning Spanish again with Duolingo, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like amazing, like to learn at your own pace. And I just really see educators in the future as facilitating process and real world projects, but like a lot of the foundational knowledge needed to perform those projects being done with technology based learning. Like I think the field you're in is like, super exciting, because I think it's a great age to be alive. I'm like, yay, there's a reason to keep going, you know, like tomorrow's exciting.
No, I agree. My wife's a kindergarten teacher, and yes, all the children have iPads, and it's freaky. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Dawn. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Dora Elias McAllister, and I am was here primarily because of Donald, actually, because I'm also in the higher education field, and I was interested to hear more about the future of work within higher education, because despite the fact that you have all these meetings, higher education tends to be very 9 to 5, plus all the stuff you do after 5 o'clock. And then also just thinking about, it's really, I think, hard to build a career if you want to do freelance work. It just seems like you have to put in years in that traditional 9 to 5 setting before you can then do freelance work. So thank you very much for having someone from education representing. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dawn, for being here. Okay, anybody else? Yeah. Yes, what's Facebook comment? What is it?
This is from Ricardo Sanchez, and he's saying, to me, the future of work is the ability to set our own hours, place where we work, things what we want to work on, etc. And we do this with the help of technology and multiple learning tools out there, not necessarily with school as we know it.
So what you said,
Yeah. I
flexibility.
agree, and to the higher education, I think the future of higher education and the corporate working world or freelance working world is that they're going to converge more. I was working, when I was at SAP, leading some of their employer branding efforts, they launched in September of that year, a new school funded by SAP in New York that was a combination of high school and college curriculum and big data, AI, the stuff that they needed to know immediately at that time. So it was the corporate world and the educational world going together, saying, you know, the education side going, okay, this is the foundational stuff that they just need, and then the corporate world going, okay, cool, this is what they need like immediate right now, because it's changing the pace of innovation and the pace of the tools we work with is changing too fast for the education system to keep up and create curriculum around it. Because right, like a semester is a certain amount of time, it's a certain, you know, year, but literally the technology or the way that you do that task could change in the matter of months, you know. So I see those things integrated.
You're 100% correct.
Yeah.
Our response to that, and I'll give you two quick examples. Samsung Semiconductor. We've been working with them for several years now. In the last 2 years alone, we've trained over 1,500 of their engineers and technicians. These are folks that already have degrees, they already have certificates, they're already in the work world, they're already working on tools. Bam, innovation occurs. New product, new manufacturing line is fired up. And so we're going in and we're bridging those skill gaps that you're talking about that emerge with that rapid innovation, right? And we teach at 3 o'clock in the morning, literally, because we can and we need to. The future of education is coming alongside the students. The future for us is not continually asking the students to come to the college, the community to come to the college. We're the community's college. We should be going to the community. So we're taking the college to the community. Samsung is a perfect example where we're coming alongside a business that has a training need driven by technological advancement, and we're meeting them where they are. The second quick example is Visa. They opened a shop here a couple of years ago, and they started hiring a whole bunch of people. Well, lo and behold, even the programmers and other IT people that they hired needed some additional training. So they asked us to come in and do little bitty short courses on their time, cloud computing, big data analytics, and some application development training as well. So that's how we're bridging that gap in a very non-traditional way. And I dare say that really is the future in our world, is bridging those gaps in a very non-traditional way.
That's great, and I think the more, even beyond just higher education, just education in general, being focused more around critical thinking, like learning how to learn, because no matter what, if we know anything about innovation and technologies, that it compounds itself. It gets faster and faster, and it's that innovation that gets faster and faster. So we inevitably know that no matter what, no matter how much education you have or don't have, you're in for a life of work that is about constant learning.
Yes. Don, right?
That is right.
I love the point that you shared, though, that what we really need to understand is the scientific method and what to ask, why to ask it, how to validate that. Because, Rachel, as we started, you pointed out that what might be next is the creative economy. And what I'm intrigued by talking about education, the role of education, how to become a freelancer, how difficult is it to become a freelancer, is that before we can become a creative culture, we still have to understand what it means to be in this information age that we're in. And it's this fact of the matter. If you're not familiar with how to do this yet, the fact is, if you have any question about how to do anything, you can look it up right now and get the answer. Right? So as a freelancer, if you want to know what you should charge to be a designer in Austin, look it up. The data is there. If you want to know if you should set up an LLC or a C Corp, well, look it up. You don't need to ask a lawyer. You don't have to talk to a lawyer. We're in this wonderful era where the role of education has to shift from simply being data-oriented and information-oriented and even skill-oriented, because the expectation has changed, particularly of freelancers. The expectation has changed a bit that I know you can figure out how to do this. The information is there. Look for this stuff. What I need you to do is be the creative, experienced side of this work that I'm looking for. And once we all get through this information age, we figure out what big data means. Does anybody even know? We figure out what big data means. We figure out what predictive analytics means. Once we all understand that, the entire economy will shift to this creative class where we really can do what we want on our terms, because we're not getting paid anymore for just the data. We're getting paid for what we love to do. We're getting paid for what we're good at. That's the future of work to me. That's why we keep moving to a more freelance economy. Because we'd all rather work for ourselves, I think.
So I love the direction this is going. I do want you guys to feel free at any point in time, raise your hand or just shout out, if you are inspired, if somebody on Facebook has a comment.
There's plenty.
Let's
on
jump in
Facebook.
here.
They're getting excited on Facebook. So Jarrett Rodriguez wrote, "We are moving to a world where work is more and more asynchronous and distributed. Technology enables that. That's why, to me, it seems a bit surprising that these bigger companies, IBM recently, are reversing their work from anywhere policies."
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm actually going to ask Rachel Rachel is, for the purposes of this conversation, our good corporate citizen, as we pointed out, right? She's the one who has a real job at Microsoft. And you do too. You work for a nonprofit. But, so, Rachel, if you don't mind, I'd love for you to tackle this first. So what's your thought on this?
Yeah, I think we have a pretty flexible culture. I mean, we have Skype for Business, right? I mean, the whole idea of, I work with global counterparts all the time, so we have to use these kind of tools, and with that means I can work anywhere. I mean, I'm here right now. I should be working in Seattle, right? But I did my work from here. I think the problem where the issues arise with these big corporations like myself or an IBM is that it's with so many people, it is so hard to get things done without having in-person meetings sometimes, the human touch and in-person experience. It's just, when you have 30 people on a Skype call, it's impossible to get anything done, and unfortunately I sit on many of those. And so I can see why with these big corporations that are very, very global, that sometimes you have to scale it back a little bit. But on the other side, I've been working with LinkedIn quite a bit post-acquisition, and I really love their culture where it's video conference all the time, period. And I think that actually helps solve quite a bit of the lack of collaboration that might exist when you have a video conference. It actually might be the one saving grace for flexibility in the workplace. If from the top down, I mean, everybody has a video on at any time. Every single conference room at LinkedIn is equipped with proper technology for video. If you don't have your video on, they're going to ask you why your video is not on.
Yep.
And so I kind of see both sides, but I would hope Microsoft will get in that. I'm pushing Microsoft to be more like LinkedIn, quite frankly.
So on one hand, you get more flexibility. On the other hand, you maybe get a little bit more intrusion, right? You
Yeah.
can't just be stuffing your face at your desk. You gotta be participating.
Right, you have to be participating in the
In
conversation.
the conference. Okay.
And you have to dress from the waist up, right?
Right.
At least.
At least
Or just
wear
the
a
bottom
shirt.
down.
Yeah.
There's a new market niche for green screens, right?
Right.
Because of the whatever environment behind you.
They cited the
Especially
IBM.
your office background, and so you can put it behind you anywhere.
That's right.
So a play on that a bit is that I'm the type of person who's constantly on Facebook. Why? Because I started my career at Yahoo when everybody in the company, was on Instant Messenger, and this was some years ago. So for a long time now, that constantly connected, constantly available, you have no excuse not to respond. On-demand connectivity is just a reality for a lot of people. It's a reality for LinkedIn. It's a reality for those of us that were at Yahoo. It's a reality for the people at Google. That's where a lot of this, the future of what we're doing is moving. Whether it's the phone in your pocket or you're sitting at home in front of a laptop, the fact is we're kind of always available. And so do we need to meet in person all the time? Maybe, maybe not. Can I reach you whenever I need to? Maybe not. That starts to introduce these problems too, where we almost expect that people are always available, always on demand, always, that you are working at 3 o'clock in the morning, because why not? Aren't we all? And so part of the future work that's interesting to me is this question of how we reset expectations to that of productivity, that of output, that of creative contribution, and less so from 9 to 5. I'm available on demand whenever you want, because the fact is we are connected, but we aren't working all the time, and we don't want to be working all the time.
Okay, so to that end, does this blow up work-life balance, or does it simply change the nature of work-life balance? Will, you want to jump in here?
Yeah, I mean, they gave IBM as an example, and I'll be honest, I don't buy that as a reason why IBM put everybody internally. IBM's own research, and I mean decades of research, showed that they as a company were a lot more profitable and more productive because they were an open, they really started the telecommuting trend as a company, and now they're pulling back. I think it's got to be something else. To me, it seems like maybe a cheap way to reduce their workforce. They have 350,000 people at IBM, and they're moving to be even more a cloud software, away from hardware. I mean, they're getting and really owning AI and stuff like that. I think that takes a lot less of a heavy workforce. So I think that may be more influencing it, and I think it's a bummer. It may be a less expensive way to do it because it's hurting the reality of that companies actually need to be more flexible. When I started my role at SuccessFactors, one of the I think first big successful SaaS software companies, 44% of people work remote at that company, over 3,000 people. My company now is completely remote. Every meeting we have has to be video. If it's not, it's like, well, what's wrong with you? Are you sick? But I don't know. I don't buy it. I don't buy that it's because they want people in the office. I don't.
Do you think maybe it's just an easy way to say, hey, we're pulling everybody in. If you want to come in, you can just opt out, and now we have less headcount?
Yeah.
I mean,
I don't know.
A former business partner of mine was with IBM, moved to Los Angeles, and when they said, okay, we're bringing everybody in, he's like, I'm not moving back. So
Yahoo did the same
moving
thing,
on.
and they did it, probably for a similar reason. I mean, they needed to reduce workforce, but didn't want the headlines of layoffs.
Clever. Okay.
There is that collaborative benefit, though,
There.
of being in the same room like we are right now, right? That even if we're not having a meeting, I can have a coffee with you and we can chit chat. It fosters the creativity, right? That unless we formally connect online or through video or in a meeting, how do we informally be productive and be creative and have conversations and explore ideas if we're not colliding somewhere, if we're not working from coffee shops or co-working spaces or incubators. There has to be in the future a way in which we're putting people in shared proximity to make things interesting happen.
Instead of paying for very expensive office space to get everyone together 9 to 5 every day of the week, what about letting people have the work remotely, but then have team offsites? So my company, I fly everyone in once a year for a week, and we have an offsite together. We go do some fun things. We work together. We co-work. Same thing even at startups I've been at. They did that, and you get the personal connection of like knowing who you're working with, and that carries throughout the way you work to each other digitally for the rest of the year.
Yeah, it can make a huge difference. Yeah.
And it would be less money.
Just like, my whole team is local, so we can do it more often. But yeah, that half a day, once a week, makes a huge difference in getting to know body language and all that kind of stuff. So I had one, I have a question, and two, I know that there's a really great from Ricardo. That I'd like for you to read. What is this instant messenger thing you speak of? You mentioned the Yahoo instant messenger.
Come on, really? All right, so way before Twitter, way before Skype, honestly, way before even Yahoo, there was AOL. Anybody remember AOL? Right? And we had the opportunity to connect with it. Before that, there were bulletin boards.
I remember that.
Online forums, chat rooms.
Yeah, right?
Chat rooms, yeah.
I was giving you a hard time, but.
No, I know. And it came from the audience, so I don't mind the hard time. But it's an important question, especially as a freelance ecosystem, right? That we are remote, we are working fractionally, we are working part-time. There's a fact of the matter with regard to how we work in the future, which is that we can connect online in a variety of ways. And whether that's through instant messaging or Skype or Facebook or tweeting, again, the expectations have changed a little bit to the fact that we can. Whether or not we do or should is a separate question, but we can. And so as a freelancer, you almost have to be conscious of the implication of not wanting to, or not being comfortable, or not being willing to, or, okay, but I know we can, so why don't we?
Okay, so is there a question from Ricardo we need to make room for here? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Ricardo Sanchez. Imagine a future where schools, community colleges are set like co-working spaces where people can go to learn and work on what they are learning while making a living. People with experience, teachers, and others help each other to succeed. All the real estate schools occupy could be converted into creative working spaces where people go to learn, work, and teach.
Sounds like ACC.
I know a couple people
That's beautiful. I wanted it so bad.
working on things like that.
Imagine.
You want to jump in here?
Imagine a world.
Imagine a world like that. By the way, the word imagine is probably the most powerful word in the English language because it instantly brings whoever you're talking to into that picture with you. I think that's really important. There are several of us up here actually that have had this sort of ongoing conversation about how you bring all of those pieces of the puzzle together, because I think that's exactly right. I think you can create a mechanism. We're trying right now at the college to integrate work-based learning, experiential learning, internship, externship, whatever you want to call it, into all of our programs in the continuing education side of the house. And it's really geared toward that. I mean, what you do in your professional life, what you do in education, those things really are coming together, like you mentioned earlier. So I think that's a really important idea that really ought to be explored, and I think it really does represent the future.
Yeah. We keep coming back to this point about creativity. So it's interesting to me that a recent MBA was the first person to bring up creativity in the workforce and how important that is. So we've really hovered around the changes that have gotten us to where we are today, right? So let's look forward 5 years, right? So as you pointed out, we're not just innovating, we're innovating exponentially, right? So it's not just that we're on a trajectory towards something different, it's changing faster every day.
7 years ago when I had that job when I started here in Austin at VMware, I wrote my job description. That job didn't exist before I made it. And then the 3 jobs I had after that, same thing. And so I can't even imagine 5 years from now what new types of roles will be created. You know, like I look at my kid. I have a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old, and I look and I think by the time they get into the workforce, they will do something that I can't even imagine it is. And most of the jobs that I know of today will not exist. They will be different. But there's one thing that robots can't take. It will never be able to do that we can do, and that is the human element. They created the relationship-based way of working, being that consultative approach. A big thing in our industry and recruiting is that the robots are going to take our jobs. The robots are going to take recruiter jobs, and
Create new ones.
And it just creates new ones. If you look at AI in the marketing world, it has been around in bots for a little while now, and all I've seen happen is there's more types of digital marketing roles. Since social media came around, there's community managers and growth hackers, and there's just new kinds of jobs. It's how it's always been.
Can we not be replaced though? I love that question.
Yeah.
There are attempts. There's a great new company called Replica that is a bot that you interact with for a bit, and its objective is to actually replace you. That eventually it's going to learn how you talk and what you talk about. And on my own personal website, I've got a thing there that's trying to do the same thing. Can you chat with me even though it's not me? It's a wonderfully interesting question. What does happen when AI gets to the point where it probably won't be innovative and inventive, but it can certainly replace many, many things. We're in media tech ventures, we're working in music. It can replace songwriting. It can replace news reporting. It can replace maybe a person or a customer service, often. So what does that look like in the future? That's a really cool question.
Okay, so any fans of Black Mirror here? Right? So the show Black Mirror on Netflix examines a lot of these issues, and it never works out very well in the show. So I think the question is there a positive, right? I mean, we can all sort of look at this dystopian possibilities, right? But is there a potentially positive output of creating these new roles of, okay, so we have more creativity, but what do we do with that? As you said, we have no idea.
I think we get efficiency
What's-
right away, though. I mean,
Yes.
I think what you're talking about is very realistic, but still, it's not within the next 5-10 years. I think the way we see AI coming in is that it automates. You're going to see a lot of the automation of the administrative tasks that you see, from manufacturing to the administrative office work. You just won't have to do it anymore. Like, I have an AI that schedules my interviews for me, that schedules all my calls for me. I just CC her in there, and she follows up, and they don't even know she's an AI. And I think that's awesome. That's great. It saves me time so that I can focus on having more meetings, networking, building more relationships to potentially maybe get more clients for our company or more partners. I can focus on more revenue generating opportunities because I've been able to automate through technology the things that aren't as valuable to my time.
Okay, so
I sort of following up on what Paul said earlier and what you're saying, and tying back to the STEM, right? So at the end of the day, what do we really mean by creative? And that creativity maybe is driven by some interactions that we have when we're drawing on those windows.
Sure.
Like we've done in the past, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that come out of that. And so at the end of the day, all of us are called to add value to our organizations, right? And what does that really mean? So we talk about STEM, right? I hear all the time from business owners, we hire for technical skill, we fire for soft skill. Okay, liberal arts majors in the room, raise your hand. We communicate with people, we are one, right? And so at the end of the day, you're starting to see a real movement from science, technology, engineering, and math to science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And what do we really mean by arts? Aesthetics, communication, all those other things. But if you really think about it, right, value in the 21st century, it's driven by the creative application of those science, technology, engineering, and math skills in a collaborative team environment. The future of work is about how we work together as teams, how my organization comes alongside your organization and your organization, and all of us work together to creatively apply all of these technical skills, all of the new emerging technologies in new and innovative ways. That's the real future out there, right? I'm concerned that we don't have enough of this, that most of our life is this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's a real concern.
I was thinking that too, back when we were talking earlier, that there is a downside of this remote working, telecommuting life, is that you lack you can actually lose some of your ability to have social interactions. Your social intelligence can actually decrease by being isolated, and so I think it's important to have a good, a good mix.
As well as your emotional intelligence.
Yes.
You're not having to
Yes.
practice.
Yeah.
Right. It's very easy to sit in your chair at the house, right, and just say, yeah, I have a high EQ, because there's nobody challenging it.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we all know people like that.
I think we're fascinated with this because we're still accepting the fact that we can do it,
Right.
that it's possible.
It's
Right? We're
easy.
still in that
It's
era.
so easy.
We have
And-
phones.
And a different way to think about the creative future is perhaps the idea that what we're going to do is we're going to specialize, right? That if you are a specialist in health, or you care about health, or you're passionate about pharmaceutical or bio or whatever, you're going to specialize, and that's going to be your contribution, be it creatively or however we think about it. And my interest is in media. We're going to specialize and have musicians and filmmakers and video game developers. We're going to have the ability to do a lot more of that in an innovative way because the technical stuff is going to be taken care of. It's going to be just handled for us. That's what's fun. And so, again, a thought as a freelance ecosystem is there is perhaps value in getting ahead of that and becoming a specialist, right? not just being a graphic designer, but a graphic designer for this industry in particular, because I need to hire for that industry in particular. And I'd rather hire this person who loves that space and is creative about that vertical and knows that vertical, whether they're a writer or a web developer or a graphic designer. Specializing seems to lead us to where we're going anyway. Which
I'm
is
glad you
really
said that.
Okay, I'm super
I was
bummed
about-
because I was literally gonna say what you were gonna say. But I waited for him and I waited for him and then he took my whole
Stole the
spiel.
thunder.
What you're looking for is ditto.
I'm like, first beer on him.
But you
But
did bring vendors.
I'm gonna elaborate a little bit. So we talk a lot about this at Microsoft in terms of how we are training our partner ecosystem, which there's quite a bit of legacy and quite a bit of they've been taking some time, I would say, those moving to the cloud. There's a lot of hybrid approaches. And so what we say to our partners, which there's all sorts of partners, right, corporate accounts, small businesses, is all about verticalization or specialization. And so be really good in one area. So if that's infrastructure, be super amazing in that and be super amazing in it in health then too. The more specialized you are, the more you can carve out your chunk in the space and then work with other businesses to actually create bigger value adds and more robust systems. One big area that I see is security. It's not a joke what's happening right now with the government, WannaCrypt. Microsoft was a victim of this 2 weeks ago. Our data is not protected. That's just the reality. And so
That's not true. It's totally fine.
in Germany, it's pretty protected. Germans do a really good job with their data, and companies we're trying. I mean, I promise you, I would say I'm so impressed with the compliance, privacy. I mean, what Microsoft does to ensure customer data is very impressive. But look what still keeps happening. And so if there are so many areas of security to think about, and with government is so behind, so behind. There's a huge regulation that's going to be hitting called the General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR, in Europe. And this hits in May of 2018. And what it says is that amongst many different requirements for business is that if your security is breached or customer data is breached or you're not protecting it, you could have to pay up to 4% of your revenue. Imagine if you're making $100 million, but 4% of your revenue. And you also need to be able to identify security breaches within 24 hours. Most security breaches are identified 30 days, if not more, after. So think about what all of any Microsoft, I don't care if you're Microsoft, AWS, Google, Cloud, doesn't matter. This is regulation from the government. Scary, but really amazing opportunity for you to come in and say, I am an expert in GDPR in Germany, in France, in wherever, and work with SMBs, enterprises. I mean, there's so much. It's $1 trillion industry. So I think that actually, we move away from customer service, but we move towards the data that needs to be protected, which is so important, and people will pay a lot of money for it.
You know, it's a fascinating point because a lot of experts get to their level of expertise and they sort of stop, right?
Yes.
Like, I'm an expert now, I did my work and I'm going to sit here on top of the mountain, and you could be a freelancer right now today and see something like this coming down the pipe and go and jump on it in 6 months, be right behind or even ahead of somebody who's been doing it for 6 years,
Yes.
right?
Yes, you can.
So, specialization. Anybody in this room a specialist in their freelance space?
Right now in cybersecurity.
It's cybersecurity.
Right.
Apropos.
Yep.
We set that up. Thank you.
Well, I mean, someone said earlier before too, like you're needing to have some of that experience before you can even go freelance. So as we get more and more specialized, what does that mean for people who are just coming out of college and they're like, you know, I don't want to work for a corporation. I want to work for myself. Like how do they build specialization without that?
If you have the specialization, how do you take that specialization to market, right? Because
Yeah.
you may be specialized, but you may not know who to talk to at Microsoft who's going to help you get
Yeah,
that contract.
But you still know what your strengths are.
Mhm.
Yes.
And that's where you know, if you're really good at coding or whatever, then how do you pick up more skills to actually have a business conversation with the technology background that you have?
And that's the answer I was looking for, because what we need to be teaching people coming into the workforce right out of school or colleges is how to market themselves.
Yes.
Because everyone has something unique about them, and the biggest thing that I see on the recruiting side of people who are trying to work at the companies I've been at, or when I'm working with a client and I'm looking at candidates trying to work there, is that they don't know how to sell themselves, because and they may not even look. It's interesting. A lot of times, the ones who are really good at selling themselves, that have really impressive on paper, they come in an interview and they bomb. And then the ones who are not very good at interviewing, not really good at building a resume, sometimes they are the perfect person for that job. They just don't know how to market themselves very well. And I think that's for anybody that's wanting to get into a freelance career, but doesn't have a lot of experience at like a Microsoft or a big name company. It's just get better at marketing yourself.
So if only there were a conference that addressed these issues for people who are trying to figure out how to be.
There's the plug.
Like in September.
Attend FREECON in September.
Which conference?
FREECON.
The freelance conference.
I think we can have that put together by, let's say, September 8th.
Yeah. Dom, what were you gonna say?
Oh, well, yeah, it actually resonated with me when my single partner who I met, and I can't remember her name right now, Laura, thank you, Laura. When she said that, like, so long story short, I worked with gang kids the last 4 years of my teaching career, and our funding got cut, and I got too stressed out, and so I just up and quit, and I stumbled into a fundraising job where I started reading stuff on the internet, and then I saw consultants coming in getting paid $5,000 for something I just read online, and I was like, F that, I quit, and then I just started freelancing, and you know, it does go back to the ability to learn and watch what's happening, and then after I read the Kevin Kelly book, I'm like, well, I love persuasion, and I'm just gonna start working on that art, you know what I mean? Because that is applicable no matter what, as long as humans are.
So you're talking about the difference between having a heads-up career instead of a heads-down career, right?
Yeah.
Like where you're looking out there, what's happening, that's what's coming.
Mm-hmm.
You made a point about saying, you know, typically you're expected to have a work history, right, before you can go on freelance. I met a young man. I went to UT to speak to students who were looking to get into the job market. And I said, does anybody in the room want to get up and tell me what it is that they're aspiring to do? And so one single person, Taylor Letterman, stood up in that group of 200 students and said, I've been trying to learn WordPress so that I can work with businesses. And I only found out later that he chose that instead of college. He went to college, spent a couple months there, and said, this is ridiculous. I'm going to go learn WordPress, and I'm going to become a WordPress consultant. And he knows a very highly paid job at a company here in Austin that helps manage stock portfolios.
Yeah, it's possible.
Show your work.
But
Show what you can do.
Literally.
Yeah.
Your degree, the company you worked at, doesn't matter
I follow
at
that
all.
girl on Twitter right now.
Sometimes.
All right, so let's,
It does matter. I'm someone who has pedigree, and it opens doors for me, right? But like, I think something that is more important is being able to show what you've done, tangible. Like, I'm a student. I just graduated. Here's a website that I built with a portfolio of projects of things that.
But
I
he got his
actually
first project that day because he told me that's, to your point, marketing yourself. He said, this is what I want to do. We went upstairs, a business owner said, I need someone to do WordPress. He said, have you met this kid? And they said, no.
But I think the point we're dancing around is the fact that what you do as a specialist is really about who you are, and how you do what you do is the question of education and experience. And you want to learn how to be a WordPress developer, fine. The question is why, and to what end, and in what industry, and in what vertical. It's not hard to, if you want to be a WordPress developer, it's not hard to spin up a WordPress website and show your passion for the sports industry. And suddenly you are credible as a WordPress developer for the sports industry.
Because you've shown
That's
your
not
work.
that difficult, because you showed us what you care about and what you're good at and what you know. The mistake I think we still kind of make is saying, I do WordPress development.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so do lots of people, right? What differentiates you from someone else? What is it that you really understand and you really care about? Because if you think about WordPress development, you get into questions of user experience and design and SEO and functionality and all these things that become very relevant to the purpose of that website, right? specialization of that website that's going to be distinct from a different industry or a different vertical.
So three things.
So what you're saying?
Hold on. So first, he was in early, right? So there was a lot less competition.
Sure.
Very quickly, everybody became a WordPress developer. He was in early enough that people were just looking for somebody who could do it.
Sure.
Second of all, we didn't let you finish your point. So what were you going to say?
Well, I am a big cheerleader for higher education, of course. I do think it's important, but it depends on the field, right? So in higher education, for the kind of work that I do, for example, I'm going to get paid the big bucks just because of this degree that I have. So it doesn't matter if someone else reads a book. All they want to know is what degree you have and where it's from. So it does matter in that field. But then in other fields, I think, maybe not at the smaller startups. So my husband, for example, is in sales. Yeah, you can, you don't need a degree to do a lot of this stuff. You want to get into this, what's the term, the C-suite, right? It's very few and far between people that don't have college degrees. Now, do you need that college degree? Probably not. But you lose that networking. I'm not saying there aren't other ways to do it, but I just think that I always am very leery of messages of like school doesn't matter, because it will matter a lot for some people, for certain groups of people.
Yeah, I'm not saying it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's not what I meant.
I'm an adjunct faculty myself. But Will, as someone who helps a lot of companies figure out their hiring, is it more or less important today to have a degree than it's been in the past?
It's becoming less. And if you look at Google, I mean, they started the whole thing about like pedigree, come from Stanford. And then they went through and looked at the data on performance of people based on the pedigree of their college and experience, and it made absolutely no difference. Zero. And they have a huge data set, right? So yes, right now it does matter sometimes what school you went to, because we still are stuck in this traditional sense of looking at pedigree to make hiring decisions, because we haven't developed always a great way to how do we assess someone's actual ability to do a job. Right now it's resumes, it's interviews, until we get to a point where employers say, our interview process is you're going to come and work for a week with us or something like that. There are startups doing that, and I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
Like doing tryouts, like just come and work with us, and we'll see if you mesh with our culture. If you do really great work, maybe we'll say, hey, here's an offer. Until we get to that point, it becomes difficult. So they have to rely on pedigree and things like that.
And that's it. You have an MBA from arguably a pretty good school. So I went to USC, so I still have to take my shots. But
I'm from LA, so UT's better.
Oh, moving on. So I know. Can't we all just get along, right?
Yes.
So, but I mean, I think it's probably safe to say you work for a great company. Would you say that MBA from UT probably helped you get that job?
Oh, 100%.
Right.
Yeah, I would not have gotten this job without the MBA. It would have been very difficult. And did I go get my MBA for the chance to work at a big brand? Yeah. I mean, I couldn't. Many of the CPG brands, it's just that is the reality in terms of how they're recruiting. I have seen LinkedIn started changing some of the stuff for more technical development in terms of what you just talked about with Google. I think for CPGs, a more traditional pedigree, absolutely, 100%. But at the end of the day, you're doing it for yourself, right? I went in to learn, and I couldn't be working this job actually with the skills I obtained in the educational program. So it's kind of like
And I do not want to.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that don't go to college. You don't need it. But what I'm saying is yeah, okay.
I'll say.
also have that entrepreneurial element
I mean,
yeah.
that
I went to college. I'm business.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes,
I
yes.
get the value of college.
So think outside the box about what a freelancer means. That a doctor is technically kind of a freelancer. They go to school, they work for themselves, they start their own practice, right? A lawyer is largely also kind of a freelancer.
Yeah.
The fact is the way education works, back to where we started the conversation, is changing, right? There are certain things that do have to go to a four-year school, do have to go to a professional school, do have to learn how to be that thing. And therefore, the same is probably true of everything else, right? We're seeing a resurgence of trade schools.
Yeah, I was gonna say like.
Because, look, you don't need to go to a four-year school to be a coder. So where it gets interesting, I think, is when we can start perhaps taking these community colleges or these campuses or these malls and say, hey, let's purpose design that experience around a certain direction, a certain vertical. And if you come learn something for 6 months, great, that's all you need to do. If you want to just work in the room over there, great, come work here in that room over there. We're going to focus on here, we're going to focus on, getting the healthcare industry, right? And so everything we're doing here is healthcare oriented.
Yep.
And we output nurses professionally, but not everybody needs to go to college to be in the healthcare industry, right? You can sell medical equipment, right? So there are lots of ways that we can use the fact that education is changing to create these experiences that matter to people more and enable people to find work opportunities, whether it's freelance or corporate or professional or independent.
The biggest skill, by the way, the biggest skill gap is not in tech in the world right now.
Yeah.
You want to know what the biggest skill gap is? Specialized trade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Electricians,
Plumbers.
plumbers.
I had this conversation.
Like nobody grows up to want to be those things anymore. It's like people aren't going to trade schools like that. They're trying to follow this American dream we've created that for a lot of people just is not a reality, is not realistic. And so we're forcing a whole generation not to focus on something they may actually be really good at if they go to a trade school and learn that.
All right, I feel like we should let the PhD candidate weigh in here.
Yeah.
No pressure.
No, it just means I know less now. After all of that, no, I think you're right with skilled trades. I was talking to a fellow this morning who's real prominent in the business community here in Austin, and he mentioned to me, 3 critical areas that we ought to be focusing our attention on. Healthcare, right? And how do we generate more qualified individuals for a broad range of opportunities in the health sector? With the new medical center that's going in, there are some pretty large estimates as to the number of jobs, not just directly with the hospital, but all of the things that build up around that, the ecosystem that builds up around that are going to be created. We have to transition a whole bunch of people into those jobs. So we have to bridge gaps for them from wherever they are, right? Maybe they already have a degree and want to move into healthcare. Maybe they don't have a degree and they want to move into healthcare. So what do those bridges really look like, and how do we meet those learners where they are so we can get them there? We talked about IT. We talked about coding. We talked about, security and engineering and some of those things. Again, how do we meet people where they are and get them there? The interesting one, really interesting one, because everybody can say, okay, healthcare and IT, yes. He said skilled trades, right? Where are we on skilled trades? And so I relayed a story to him about skilled trades. It's not always possible to have a brick and mortar building, a facility where people come in from all over the place to go do some of that kind of training. And so one of the things that we're doing, and it gets back to your point too, right? One of the things that we're doing, we've built a series of mobile trainers. Literally, I can bring in that door and I can do plumbing, HVAC, electrical, and welding training anywhere. So meeting the students literally where they are, not just academically where they are, but geographically where they are. Meeting them where they are, I think, is one of those trends that you're going to see in education. It's not enough to just put stuff online and say, oh, students can take classes from anywhere. It's not. You still have to turn a wrench.
So the hands-on stuff, as we said earlier, you can't outsource that, right?
You can't outsource
There's no AI to fix your plumbing right now.
There's not going to be.
Until we get
no
bots.
No bot can do that.
No bots.
No,
We'll get
bots can.
Okay.
There's a guy that's
Until they get
paid
the
$200
animatronic
an hour,
AI.
$100 an hour, $150 an hour to come and do that, right?
So we're at an hour, correct? Okay, this is what we were allotted. So I want to do this. Anna, do we have any questions online that we really should not miss here?
There's so many.
So many.
But Chris Larson is saying there are no rules. So the big takeaway for him today is that there are no rules in seeking work. If you're good and can show it, there's a place for you. If you aren't, and take the time to get there, same applies. Don't be afraid to buck the system.
Yeah, that's right, Chris.
I think we can all agree on that. Would you?
We're out.
Yep.
Our work here is done.
Okay. However, I'm actually going to ask you. So again, we really dug in on education, which I think is fantastic. But I'm going to ask you guys to make some predictions. So looking ahead, 3 to 5 years, what are your big predictions for the future of work to wrap us up today? You want to go first, or you want to?
I may want.
Shoot.
And I mentioned this a little bit earlier. I think both employers and potential employees are, within the next 5 years, are going to have to get better at marketing to each other. Honestly, to being able to employers being able to succinctly tell their story of what makes them compelling, because there's a lot of competition for talent out there, and to candidates and people who are even freelance, especially freelancers, are going to be better, and the people who are going to be successful at that are be the ones that know how to tell their story and how to show why they add value. So for me, the next 5 years, the future of work is that we're all going to have to be better at marketing ourselves.
So it's the unique value proposition on both sides of the equation.
Yeah, EVP all the way.
How about you?
Yeah, I think since I'm like the corporate person here, and I'm not making, don't quote me for all corporations, but I do think that there is going to be downsizing that happens for these big corporations that you started talking about. The 100,000 employees is probably just not going to be necessary. So I think I predict seeing some of these legacy companies like a Microsoft and whatnot downsizing, or at the very least shifting into areas that are really important, like artificial intelligence. So Microsoft divested, right, its Nokia business. We had to lay off a lot of people. We're constantly laying off people. However, we invested 5,000 into a new workforce of 5,000 into AI. So the areas of maybe more customer service, whatever this case, we'll do less of that. Bring in the areas that we really, really need to grow.
So now's a good time to go become an expert in AI.
It's going to be a painful shift.
Yeah.
It's going to be really painful. I would agree with you. I can already see in the many reorgs that happen every day at Microsoft that the transformation we're going through is no joke, and it's affecting the ripple effect is really big, because we reach 1 billion different people every day, right, through Microsoft Office, etc., Windows. And so if we make changes like that, it affects all the small businesses and all the people that work for us that can potentially get laid off. So it is going to be a big change, and it will continue to happen. But I see a huge opportunity for SMBs, which make up most of the world, and all the corporations I've talked to have been really focusing in on technology, value propositioning, messaging, specific products that they can appease the SMB world, because we know that there's so many freelancers, one-person businesses, frontline workers, desktop wireless workers, right? Bring your own device, all of those things. And so that's really affecting also the way we're bringing in new technology.
So the upside, if you will, of there being less people working at huge corporations is going to be a whole lot more people out in the world in terms of the marketplace.
I think so, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Paul?
Maybe a nearer term thought than AI. We're all here. If you're not,
What was that?
we're on a phone. We're on a phone.
Instant messenger.
A different way to make the point.
I am.
That the shift in technology is generational. That my family, my parents rather, right? They started to use the PC. I literally carried this up to my panel. I live on this thing. 20-year-olds live on this thing. The future of the economy is going to start with the fact that it's incredibly mobile, that everything is on demand, and everything is accessible. So what do I think that means? I think that simply means that you have to be present. It doesn't mean you have to be there chatting. You have to be present. When you show up at my door, talking about trade skills, when you show up at my door pitching that you can trim my trees, the fact is I'm going to close the door, I'm going to look up on Yelp or Google or Facebook, or I'm going to ask for a recommendation for somebody who trims trees. And if you don't show up, being that plumber or that whatever, if you don't show up, I'm not going to hire you. That the future of the freelance economy is that you have to be present online, on a mobile device, because that's where we're all looking for these specialists, these people.